Hey, thank you so much for tuning in today. We are in Genesis chapters 9, 10, and 11. We've been looking this week at the nations. Three things we'll do over the week. We'll look at the origin of the nations. We're still talking about that today. The origin of the nations. Where did we all come from? The sin and division of the nations. We'll look at that tomorrow and the next day. And then lastly, the hope of the nations, which we'll look at on Friday. So whenever it comes to the origin of the nations, it tells us right out of the gate in Genesis 9:18 that Japheth, Ham, and Shem, from them come all the nations of the world. Chapter 10 is literally a listing of 70 different people groups or nations. It's called the Table of the Nations. In fact, you look at the heading in your Bible, and a good chance it's going to say exactly that, the Table of the Nations. The number 7 is like the number 7 in the Scriptures, which is symbolic for things. The number 70 oftentimes is used to mean a collection of things, not necessarily 70 and 70 only. So it has that pattern throughout the Old Testament. But this is affirmed, the idea that from Noah, he's a new Adam, but instead of just one couple, Adam and Eve, you've got 4 couples. You got Noah and Mrs. Noah, and you've got their 3 sons and their wives. And so from them come the known world. The Apostle Paul said it like this in the book of Acts, chapter 17, verse 26, that he, God, made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth, having determined their appointed times and boundaries of their inhabitants. That's really a beautiful little verse that describes Genesis chapter 9, 10, and 11. It's kind of referring back to that. So it's a New Testament reflection of that Old Testament passage. Kind of makes us think of the entire, the Bible's a unified story that leads to Jesus, right? It's a unified story that keeps popping in the New Testament with little nuances of the outcome. But here's the deal. Scholar Richard Hess says it like this: whatever else the Table of Nations in Genesis chapter 10 should emphasize, it is clear from Genesis chapters 1 through 11 that it points to a common humanity of all people who share in the failures and hopes of a common ancestry and ultimately a common creation in the image of God. It's nice. A common humanity, a common ancestry, and a common creation that we are all made in the image of God. Wow, what does this mean to us? How is this for us? Remember the first thing, the Bible's not written to me, but it's written for me. So how is this Table of Nations, how is this information for me? Well, a couple things. This means certainly that there is never any biblical basis for anyone ever thinking that any one group of people, regardless of race or skin color, is ever better than another. It means to us that we are all created in God's image. We all belong to the human family. This reinforces at Yosemite Church what we call our fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our fifth value, which is the intentional witness of unity, right? And the second one, the intrinsic worth of every person. Everybody's made in the image of God. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, rub-a-dub-dub, 3 men in a tub. Everybody has the stamp of God's image on them. Now, it's marred, and some it's marred more than others, but God's image is with us. You'll never lock eyes with another human being that does not matter to God. Never. It's important for us to remember that no matter who we encounter, that person is made in his image. Therefore, they deserve dignity, respect, and an honoring of their place in humanity. The second thing that we can derive from this text, you're saying, what was the first thing? The first thing is that we all belong to the human family and therefore deserve to be treated with dignity. That's the first thing. The second thing is that God is sovereign over all the nations. Is that God saw this coming. He's not intimidated by Babylon or Assyria or Canaan. Those are all three of the prominent nations that we're going to see as we go forward in the text. And they're all three prominent adversaries to the Hebrew people in the Old Testament. But we need to recognize that all of the nations God is sovereign over. Here's a couple passages. Let me read these for you. Jeremiah 10 says, "There is none like you." Jeremiah is talking to God. "O Lord, you are great, and your name is great in might. Who would not fear you, O King of the nations?" Jeremiah is saying, God is King of the nations. They may have an earthly king, but God is king over all. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15. Isaiah 40 is awesome, by the way. If you haven't read it, it's worth some focus all by itself. But listen to this. I love this. He's just talking about that God's not intimidated by any world power. Who is able to advise the Spirit of the Lord? Who knows enough to give him advice? The nations are but a drop in a bucket, a mere smudge on a window. He's saying that no matter how powerful any earthly nation is, in comparison to God, they're a smudge on a window. They're a drop in a bucket. God is sovereign. He has power over the nations. In fact, what we will see as the Old Testament progresses is that God can use an ungodly nation to accomplish his godly purposes. So when we think something's not happening, don't second guess. Maybe God is going to do something, even through those who mean it for evil. I know this so much in my own life, that even though the enemy meant it for evil, God can turn it for good. Today, what is there in your life that you might lose sight that God is sovereign over? That you might lose sight that God is busy doing something in you when you can't see what's going on around you? I want to encourage you. I know firsthand that even when I cannot see him working, I know he's working. Even when I don't know the plan, I can trust his plan. And I put my confidence in him. I hope you will too. God bless you. Much love. I'll see you tomorrow.